What is up, everybody? My name is Aaron, or XrayCosmo, and welcome back to another Overwatch video. So today I'm doing a long-awaited tier list for Season 24 after the current patch where Roadhog got nerfed again. Those changes came out as I was going to make this video, so I had to wait until it hit live to make this video. That's why it's a little longer between videos than usual, because Overwatch is constantly changing, and literally within a day, the tier list I made before would have made no sense. So here I am with a tier list for the most recent update. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with what tier lists are. As you can see on my screen, we have God tier, solid hero, good, mediocre, major drawbacks, and needs rework. I don't really need to explain it. I'm sure all of you know what it is. And one last thing, so I don't know if you guys can see this, but let me zoom in there on this screenshot. So a very small portion of you are actually subscribed. So if you like my videos, subscribe, it's free. And if you don't enjoy the videos, you can always unsubscribe. Thank you, and let's get started. So I'm not really doing it by tanks or by DPS or healers. I'm just gonna go from left to right and just go through the whole thing. First being Ashe, last being Zen. So I'm sure we all know where Ashe should go. Ashe is a very strong hero right now. She is very meta. I'm putting her God tier because her dynamite is very strong. It does a lot of DPS, and her gun alone does a lot of DPS. And she recently got kind of, I wouldn't call it indirect because it was for all the heroes with shotguns, but she did get a buff with the new spread change. So Ashe is God tier. So next up here we have Winston. Now recently, before this patch, I actually would have put Winston in solid hero, but now I think he might be God tier just because he used to be getting countered by Roadhog, and he was always countered by Roadhog, but it was really bad when Roadhog got his buff. But now he's strong again. Ashe is strong. He could be used to counter Ashe, so I'm going to put him in God tier. Now, I know most of you are going to be like, why is he putting everyone in God tier? It's really just the random assortment of these heroes, but next up is Zarya, and I'm also going to have to put her up there with them. She is very strong. Grav is strong. She works as a good combo with both Winston and Hog, who were both recently meta. I think she's just a very strong hero, especially to protect others, and you can get a lot of value out of her, and she does a ton of damage. Now next up is Sim. Now Sim's kind of a tricky one because there are players who could do a lot with Sim. Now, is she situational? Yes. Can she be used all the time? Absolutely not. So I'm gonna have to put her in mediocre over here. I wouldn't really be able to move her up or down. There's no major drawbacks, and there's nothing really good that would make me choose her over someone else unless you know how to play Sim really well. So yeah, Sim is going to be in mediocre. Next up is Bastion. Bastion, he really isn't situational. Now I'm going off the top tier play now. I'm not going down in lower ranks because in lower ranks you can actually use Bastion. You can pretty much use any hero in lower ranks, and it, like, as long as you're good, it will work. But a lot of the time, as you get higher and higher, the meta becomes more important, and Bastion just isn't that good right now. He can output a lot of damage, but he's very easily countered, so I'm gonna put him in needs a rework. Actually, I really think Bastion needs a rework, and I really hope that Blizzard can fix him soon because he really needs some help. Now, next we have our favorite sniper, Widow. I cannot stress how much I hate Widow. She is ridiculously strong. I'm gonna put her in S tier, even with her recent nerfs, which is, I think it's a 65 meter, which changes the damage where you can't like one-shot dink anymore. It really still, she is still very strong if you're playing with top tier players. She's God tier, there's nothing to question it. Now next up is Soldier. He can really output a lot of DPS, and he has his heal pack. His abilities aren't really anything special, but I do think he is better than average just because he is such, and not an easy hero to play, but he's very simple, and his abilities can do a lot of damage if you just use them correctly. So I'm gonna put him good just because I don't think he's on the same level with Sim. Next up is our favorite turret building man. Torb's a man. So I'm actually gonna put Torb in good and not mediocre. Recently, before the recent patch, I would actually put him in mediocre. He just got his damage buff, and he also just got the spread buff, which is very huge for Torb. So I think he's level with Soldier now. He can output a lot of damage. His ult is good, and both of his abilities are good as well, so he deserves to be in good. Now, next we have our favorite frog, Lucio. Just with recent metas, Lucio just hasn't been good. I'm gonna have to put him in major drawbacks. He doesn't do a lot of healing. Yeah, you can speed boost the team into a fight, but that's really it. There's so many healers that do so much more than him. There's no point in playing Lucio, so I'm gonna have to put him in major drawbacks. Now Reaper, he's a tricky one because before these patch notes, I would have put Reaper in major drawbacks just because it was hard for him to do a lot of damage, especially with Ashe and Widow being meta. But I'm gonna have to put him in good just because I don't think he's mediocre level. He can output a lot of damage, and especially with the Hog nerfs coming in, Reaper can do a lot more because he won't just be hooked in one shot anymore. And the shotgun changes are really changing a lot for all these heroes, so I'm gonna put him in good. Now, before I start this next one, I'm gonna move Mercy all the way up here with Pharah because I think these are kind of a duo. You can't really play Pharah without Mercy just because it's so easy to shoot her down. I'm actually gonna put Pharah and Mercy in solid hero just because that combo is one of the deadliest combos in the game, especially if you don't have a Widow that's just dinking them constantly. I would put her in S tier with Mercy, but because Widow is so meta, I'm not going to do that because Widow would just snipe her out of the sky. I mean, it's pretty simple. Her ult, yeah, her ult is also one of the drawbacks of Pharah. So that's another reason why she's not god tier, because I've said it in another video actually. Have you ever heard Pharah's ult line completely finished? That's what I thought. No, you haven't. She dies every time she ults unless she gets a good ult. I think that's a pretty good place for them just because if they were in god tier. Even putting them this high with all these hit scan and god tier, I really think I'm being generous with these, but there's a lot of damage potential between them. So next up is Bap. Now I'm gonna put Baptiste actually in good. I don't think he's a solid hero because he can very easily be killed if he doesn't have immortality or his other ability. His abilities are okay. Immortality is one of the strongest abilities in the game, don't get me wrong, but his ult just isn't that good compared to lots of other heroes. But I don't think he's mediocre. I do think he's above average, so I'm gonna put him in good in here with Soldier, Torb, and Reaper just because I don't think he's Symmetra level. But his ult is really the main thing drawing him back. I mean, it's really good if you use it correctly, but a lot of people don't use it correctly, and it's kind of hard to use because you have to stand in the same spot. There's just a lot of drawbacks with his ult, so that's why he is in good and not solid hero. Next up is Ana. Now, Ana, I think, is the best healer in the game right now. She is very, very strong. She can definitely output the most heals out of any of the healers in the entire game. I think she's going to be meta. Nothing's really going to change. I don't think she's overpowered, but I think she is a very, very good hero. Brig. After all these nerfs, I wouldn't put her above mediocre. I think she is going to have to stay mediocre because she's not Lucio level bad, but she's still like, She's not that good. She can output heals, but after losing her armor and all those nerfs, it's really just rough for Brig. I feel bad for you guys. Your hero is literally just getting pounded into the ground for all you Brig mains. There's really nothing more to say. It's just that you guys are completely getting dicked by Blizzard, and it must not be fun for you. Next up is Echo. Now, I actually think Echo is really, really slept on. I think she can output a lot of damage even after all her changes in the beginning when she first came out. So I'm gonna have to put her in good. I don't think she's solid just because she can get shot out of the air. She is good with Mercy. So actually, maybe, you know what? I'm gonna put her with Mercy and Pharah because I think she's only really good if you have a pocket healer that can really help you. She can output a lot of damage on her own, but it's very, very risky, especially with Ashe and Widow being played pretty much every single match. So you just have to look out for that. I think without a Mercy, she's definitely good or even mediocre, but I think with a Mercy, she's very, very strong. So I'm gonna put her in solid hero with Pharah. Now we have the face of Overwatch. I never really thought Tracer was bad, but she's never really been OP either. She has had her metas like Dive, like that was really just a Tracer meta, but I don't think she's ever been overpowered. There's not been many changes for Tracer. The only Tracer change I can even remember is her pulse bomb change, so I'm gonna put her in solid hero because I don't think she's god tier, because I don't think she's as powerful as Widow or Ashe because they can just dink her and completely take her out, but I do think she is better than all of these other heroes. Genji, our favorite samurai. Honestly, if this was like a month ago, Genji would be all the way up at the top, better than all these heroes. But after Blizzard's nerf, I'm sadly gonna have to put Genji in mediocre. It really saddens me to do this. The meta is constantly changing. Genji was up, then he went down. Hog was up, then he went down. I was very sad to see Genji go down because I am a very avid Genji player. This is a sad one, but I'm gonna have to leave him in mediocre with Sim. I think he's better than Sim. I'm not doing these in any order, by the way, so it's just God tier, solid hero, good, mediocre. There's no order in between the tiers. If you guys get what I'm saying, I think you get what I'm saying. Next up is Satan herself, Mei. Now, I'm not going to put Mei in major drawbacks because I don't think she really has any true major drawbacks, but I don't think she can put out a consistent amount of damage, so I'm going to put her in mediocre with Sim, Brig, and Genji. I don't think she can put out as much damage as someone like Reaper or Soldier, but she's not at Lucio level with drawback. She is very situational for maps and all stuff like that, so because of that, she is staying in mediocre. Hamster is up next, and I'm gonna have to put him in S tier with all these other tanks. I think Hammond is one of the best tanks in the game right now. He's very good, especially against these two DPS. If they have a Widow or Ashe, Hammond is actually really good against both of them. So I'm gonna put Hammond up on top with the rest of the God tier heroes. Next up is Doomfist, and I don't think Doomfist is really good for this meta. He's really terrible. Yeah, he can dive Ashe and Widow, but they can both get away from him very easily. Doomfist had his meta. He doesn't really have a lot of strength anymore, but I can see him coming back, to be honest. I think they're trying to make heroes like Doomfist and Reaper more powerful. Even though I put Reaper up here, I just don't think Doomfist can put out as much damage as him. So I'm gonna actually put Doomfist in mediocre with all of these guys because I don't think he's above average. I think he's just Genji level. He's like Genji. He can put out a lot of damage depending on what the other team is doing, but meta-wise, he's just not that good. And just like that, Hanzo is another hero that is alike to that. He had his time. Yeah, he had his buffs, but I just think Hanzo is very mediocre. He's not really meta right now. Yeah, Zarya being meta, you think you can just press Q together and win the game, but it really it's not that simple anymore, especially with BAP coming in and all these heroes just being not all scrunched up together because there's not really comps like that where everyone's really close together anymore. So I'm gonna have to put Hanzo in mediocre. And speaking of comps that aren't together a lot, Reinhardt is up next. Now, Reinhardt really shined during those brawl-type comps with Zarya, Rein, and Reaper and Mccree, but it's just he's not that strong anymore, and I don't think he's mediocre. I still do think he's above average because he is probably one of the better shield tank heroes, especially with Arisa getting her nerfs. But I do think that Reinhardt is better than average, but he does have a few drawbacks that really take him away from being a solid hero this meta. Junkrat, he can output a lot of damage. I'm going to put Junkrat in solid hero, actually. His ult is good. His abilities are good. Everything about Junkrat is good, except for the fact that, once again, we have Widow and Ashe up here in S tier, and they really can just destroy him, especially from far range. He doesn't have much range, which is why I'm going to leave him in solid hero and not God tier. Moira is another hero that I think has major drawbacks nowadays. Now, if we're talking about lower ranks, I would put her in like good or even solid heroes just because she is easier to play in those ranks. But if we're talking top tier plays, I'm just going to put her in mediocre with all these other heroes. She's not above average. She just kind of is there. There's nothing really else about Moira. I think a Moira meta is approaching us though. I think Blizzard's going to work to make some changes, especially with what they've been doing with her orb and fade. So I'm excited to see what happens with that. Now, next up, we have Roadhog. Now, all eyes are on the pig right now. I know everyone wants to see where this goes. Now, if this was like 2 days ago, Roadhog would be S tier, but because of his damage nerf and everything else not getting reverted, I think Roadhog is going to have to go in solid hero or even good now. He's not that good anymore. He can't output as much damage. And the reason Roadhog is down here and Winston is up there is because of these nerfs. If it wasn't for those nerfs, Winston would be solid hero just because Roadhog can hook him, but he still can hook him, but just not do as much damage. Yeah, the shotgun spreads have helped him, but I still don't think that makes Roadhog God tier anymore. And sadly, we're going to have to leave him here. Which honestly, I think a lot of people are happy about, so I don't think it's sadly. I personally don't think it's sadly. I don't know why I said sadly, to be honest. Now, I'm very happy Roadhog is getting nerfed into the ground. I hate him with all my heart. So Arisa is next, and I think Arisa really just deserves to be with Lucio here. She has had major drawbacks after getting her nerf on Halt. That really was just her best ability, and it got snatched away from her. So there's not really anything. There's no use She doesn't put a lot of damage out because she's a tank, and there's really no use for her shield when you have Reinhardts who can just do it 10 times better. So I'm going to put her in major drawbacks. Hopefully we see some changes soon to bring her up. Next up is Sombra. Now, I would say Sombra is mediocre because she is very situational, and it helps if you have a good Sombra map, but I'm gonna put her in good just because all of the heroes in S tier really get destroyed by Sombra attack. Not as destroyed as someone like Doomfist would get, but they take away their mobility, and if you have a good team working together, they really could just destroy it, especially for someone like Hammond who's rolling through. If you get a Sombra hack off, it's completely done. And EMP, I think, is still one of the most underrated ults in the game. I think it is one of the best ultimates in the entire game. It's easy to get. If you have a good team, it does a lot of work. But Sombra does put out a lot of utility, but she doesn't do a lot of damage, so that's why she's not in solid hero. But if she did put out more damage, well, we can see Sombra moving up here, but I don't think she's going to get any extra damage buffs anytime soon, so she's going to stay in good for now. Now, this one I'm a little bit biased with because I love Mccree. Mccree is my main, but I honestly would have put Mccree S tier before his nerfs, but after his nerf where he can't shoot as fast anymore, I still think he's a solid hero. I just don't think he's up to par with all of these anymore, because if I'm doing it by claps, his gun used to be like, and now it's just, which feels really sluggish for Mccree. I really hope they change this. It just feels terrible, and that is why he is in solid hero. Flashbang is still good. Deadeye has always been but I do think he's better than good, and he can do better than all these heroes over here. Next up is Diva. Now, I do think Diva actually belongs with Lucio and Arisa, just because she is an ult battery recently, and Hammond is just the truly better pick than Diva right now. But I hope we do see some buffs coming out soon, just because her abilities do need some help. I think her ult is terrible. It's very easy to dodge, especially if you're in a high rank. I mean, if you're in a lower rank, yeah, it will work. Unless it's perfectly placed, then it's really easy to dodge, and I just don't think she's that good of a hero. Next up is Sigma. Now, I actually think Sigma has been very good recently. He is one of the better shield tanks. I'm actually going to put him higher than Rein, but I'm not going to put him S tier just because I do think he does have some drawbacks, which are his shield just breaking really quickly, and his damage is okay. It's nothing crazy. It's nothing compared to Zarya or Winston. I actually do think Winston does a lot of damage, and I know I'm going to get shit in the comments for that one, but I do think Sigma just belongs in solid hero. I don't think he's god tier meta with these other heroes. And last but not least, we have Zen. Now, I do think Zen is actually going to go in solid hero. I think we are very slowly approaching a Zen meta with these small buffs Blizzard's giving them, so I'm excited to see what happens with that. And hopefully we get a Zen meta, because we haven't had one in a long time, and they are very fun. So this is my tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I love hearing feedback. If you guys enjoyed the video, please drop a like. It helps the channel out a lot. And if you want more gaming content and news, hit that subscribe button and that bell so you can see all my videos when they first come out. Also, if you want a shout out at the end of the video, leave a comment and you can get picked for that. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.